Welcome to the Smart Talk series, the show for professionals who want strategies, tips, and real talk about all things PR, marketing, and social media. Your host is Melissa Vela Williamson, an award-winning, accredited, and nationally recognized PR pro and communication thought leader. And now your host, Melissa Vela Williamson.
Hello and welcome to the Smart Talk series. I'm Melissa Vela Williamson. This season, our focus is on Latinas in public relations. Today, I'm joined by two guests, Melissa Monroe and Olga Mayoral Wilson. Melissa Monroe has worked in public relations for over 15 years, and prior to that was a journalist for another 15 years. She's very active in her community and mentors students and young professionals. Olga Mayoral Wilson sees herself as a service leader providing service where it is most needed. She was born in Puerto Rico, a beautiful island in the Caribbean, which nurtured her to be who she is today. She's the youngest of three girls and has always loved reading and learning about cultures, their people, and customs. Through travel, education, and being exposed to so many experiences and locations, her thirst for knowledge, teaching, and mentoring is somewhat quenched. Welcome, Melissa and Olga.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you for having me on the show today. I'm so excited to talk with you and your listeners.
Good afternoon. It's so great to be here with you, Melissa and Melissa, both of you.
Yes, the two Melissas. There's a joke in our local Public Relations Society of America chapter in San Antonio. There's like 5 of us, and if we all go to the same mixer or event, we think it's delightful, and we line up for a photo. So very popular, late 70s, 80s name, and so we're happy to have it. So thank you all for being here. Well, let's dig in and learn more about your backgrounds. How did y'all get into public relations, and what's your work life like today?
Thank you. So I got into public relations about 15, maybe 16 years ago. I was a business journalist at the local newspaper, San Antonio Express News. And about 15 years ago, the industry was starting to shake up. We were seeing layoffs at different newsrooms and also in the Express News. So I saw the writing on the wall, and I just started putting my name out there and just talking with different people I knew, networking. And before I knew it, I got a call from a local community college, said, "We have a position open. Are you interested?" And I wasn't quite sure if I would be interested, but I knew I had to make a change. And that's what led me into the world of public relations, college public relations. So I've been here ever since because I love the flexibility of it. It's good when you have children, at least education PR. And it's nonstop busy. There's always something happening, from event planning to campaign writing to pitching to news media to lining up guests for shows. So it's never a dull moment in college PR.
No, absolutely. And you probably have to deal with issues management and crisis comm, just like every other school and college PR pro I know. So heads off to you, Melissa. Olga, tell us about what's going on in your world today, how you got into PR and what's life like today.
Definitely. Well, let me tell you, getting into PR was really a gradual process. I studied French literature and English literature, and those languages were the ones that led me to my first position. Unknowingly, it was not a traditional path. And the first time that I accepted an offer was to be a translator of documents that were in French. I was able to translate them to English and then to Spanish. And they were part of the Palmas del Mar resort in Puerto Rico that was being organized and built. So the managers I worked for, they were from France, they were from Switzerland, and the lady was from Germany. They needed all those training manuals to teach all the new employees. And of course, they wanted Puerto Rican employees, so eventually in Spanish would be the way to do it. And I learned so much with them. The general manager at the time, he was a natural PR person, even though he was not a PR title person. And I went along, kept on learning from him. The resort grew. It's still in Puerto Rico, in the East Coast. And I took it from there, another position and another. I was always asking questions and asking him how to do certain things and learning. And years later, I started as a PR director at a small PR agency in Puerto Rico, Norman Craig and Como. And there, my biggest client was Colgate Palmolive, like the toothpaste.
Yeah.
And it was a school of its own. And I loved it. I loved everything I did before, during, and after. And life kept on taking me different places, and I always welcome opportunities. So that's how I got here.
I love that. And I think that following what you find interests you as you start your career journey is an important step to take because sometimes that path isn't clear and it wasn't laid out for us either through our academic adventure as college students or even what our families discuss with us. So that's really helpful background. You both are new authors in the inaugural Latinas in Public Relations anthology. So what inspired you to share your story in that new collection, Latinas in Public Relations, Shaping Communications, Communities, and Culture?
What inspired me to share my story is my friend and advocate, Melissa Vela Williamson. So everyone needs an advocate on their side. And throughout my life, I've always been advocating for others, and whether it be in the newsroom or in public relations or in the different community groups I belong to. But I realized just after being friends with Melissa, and we would share our stories together a lot of times during walks. And during COVID, we would talk about just our backgrounds, where we came from, our work. And she was like, "Hey, you have a great story. Why don't you share that?" So you almost need someone to be an advocate for you. You're so busy advocating for others that you forget what your own story is. And that's what inspired me to share my story was just my friend, my colleague, Melissa Bella Williamson. And I love her for that because I think everyone needs an advocate.
Your story is powerful too. So anyone who's picking up the book, definitely check out Melissa Monroe's story because I love when writers are so clear that you almost feel like, punched between the eyes, like, whoa, okay, yes, I'll get it together. Thank you. So way to go. I appreciate it. Well, thank you, Melissa, for joining me. Olga, tell us what was inspiring to you about joining the collective for this book?
Melissa Monroe is absolutely right. We all need a cheerleader. Melissa Bella Williamson is our cheerleader. I think that we're so used to talk about other people and put other people's names out there that we don't think of ourselves. And doing that for us, I think it's really good. Also, I have to say, that I think other young professionals can learn from what we went through. And it's an uphill battle sometimes. And, I think we all need a little push here and there, and that I can do it attitude. So here we are with you.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you're right. Life itself can be an uphill battle, but definitely public relations is in its own way an uphill battle as a career journey, as a career path, because, there's been different research and stats that come out on like, what are the most stressful careers out there? And PR's often up there with like emergency room professionals. So you're right, Olga, on that for sure. And I appreciate both of y'all saying that I supported you and cheerleaded you. And let's be honest, there was some push there too, but for the reasons we said, because often our work is behind the scenes, but for there to be more people to work and advance in the industry, we need to share our lessons, our learnings, our hardships, right? Because that's what people connect to. And I've had the advantage as the main author or curator or editor. I have a lot of different roles in this book, but reading across the author stories, there are definitely shared points of view and connection points that come up. Some of the ones I took away were perseverance, taking that non-linear path into the career or even through it, like Olga said, and then overcoming our feelings of doubt, worry, imposter syndrome, sometimes the feelings people threw on us in the workplace. But each author's story for sure is definitely unique. So tell us a little bit about what's in your story.
In my story, when I was a young girl, I remember watching TV news with my dad. My dad's African American, also Black Creole in some regions where you go. And he would always point out a Black woman who was an anchor on TV news, and he would always tell me, that's going to be you one day on TV. And so I just kind of had in my head that I was going to go in the field of communications, not really knowing what that would lead me to. So as I started to get older and started learning about mass communications and journalism and working in different newsrooms, it was a little bit intimidating because I would have colleagues who would like go to journalism school, or they were really good at writing in English. And that wasn't something that I was the best at, but I had perseverance and I had a little bit of confidence. I wouldn't say my confidence was way up there, but I had enough confidence to say that I need to keep learning. I need to keep moving forward. As I ventured into business journalism, I started realizing that my identity and my mixed heritage of not only being Black, but Hispanic, Mexican American was a little bit of an issue because they don't look at business journalists or brown girls, the same. Everyone is pretty much a white male. So I had to really be on my dot my I's, cross my T's when it came to knowing about the business, writing about it. And I really had to have more confidence in myself. So every year that I was in the field of journalism, my confidence kept growing and growing. And then I kept being asked to be an advocate for others. Can you be a leader of the San Antonio Association of Black Journalists and advocate for the Black journalists in the newsroom? And then when I ventured into public relations, it was, can you be an advocate for the Black employees there and, create different employee resource groups? Along the way, my identity, my mixed heritage really defined who I was in journalism and public relations, because people kept asking me to be an advocate, uplift others along the way. That's kind of what shapes my story. That's what makes my story unique, is just I had to really infuse who I was culturally into also what I do professionally.
I really appreciate that, and I appreciate your sharing that context and candor with us, because I think that was part of my. I'll just pull back the curtain. That was part of my challenge in finding this author group, is that I wanted very diverse representation, from coast to coast, from specialty to specialty, but also within the whole entire rainbow and spectrum of what it means to be Latina, or however you want to word it, however you feel it. Right. And to do so led me into many uncomfortable moments of trying to ask questions. Like, there were some where maybe the surname was Latina, and I'm like, okay, but I don't want to assume. And I think that being curious and respectful about that, and gentle with our questions and gentle with our answers, is ways we can kind of work through and around that. Because as you mentioned, Melissa, like, you weren't always experiencing that gentleness and grace in what you were doing. But I think you're accepting the request and challenge to be more of a supporter and advocate and cheerleader in some ways for others really helps them be more brave. Because sometimes I hear confidence being used like an end state, and there's no end state to confidence. Just like, unfortunately, there's no end state to like weight loss, right? We don't just, run through that race ribbon and it's over, but we have to work on ourselves to be there. So kudos to you for all of that and being brave. So Olga, tell us about what's inside your story.
It's looking back, of course, and with the years you think, oh my God, it's so amazing. It's so amazing. And it was not easy, but I didn't know any better. I got married to my husband and we went to Hawaii. So I left Puerto Rico, where I was having a beautiful PR career. great position, great PR agency, and I had my roster of clients and everything. But once you get anywhere else and you're a military wife, whatever you have been before, it's not there. They don't know. So you learn rapidly that you have to prove yourself. You have to have guts, which I didn't know I had. And I was very afraid. Another thing is that once we got to Hawaii, I think it was like 10 days after, my husband left on a ship and he went to Alaska. So I was by myself, and then I started going to different interviews, but it was very difficult. Of course, the accent was there, which, the English was correct. So the name, of course, was there too. But it didn't matter if I had handled American Airlines, Colgate, all those big clients. I had to go and prove to them and to myself that I could do it anywhere. And that was the case almost everywhere I went after Virginia, Washington, D.C. So I never took it after Hawaii. I never took it as a bad thing. I learned that, well, I have to spend more time. But I learned how important my culture was because I was away from my island, away from my family. So I put all of that together, and I was always so proud, and I showed it. If I had an accent, well, okay, I'm okay with it. So, and that's how I got here. But it's a process. It's a process of feeling better and empowered, knowing your weaknesses, and making sure you help other people that are going through that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate how lighthearted you are about it, Olga. Like, well, oh well, yeah, I have an accent, Well, okay, I just need to make some friends and allies and relationships here, and I'll just start back over. And I know how to do that, right? I know how to position myself and share my skills and background. So that bounce back is so important, and I think that's what also helped you kind of leap forward in your career. Because as I read your bio and I read Melissa's bio, I'm like, these are super, super impressive professionals here. And they were also two of the most humble, on-air bios I've read ever on the podcast. So, wow. And they're amazing. Read the full bios in our show notes and for sure in the book, y'all. But I want to ask, because of those backgrounds, about the disciplines you kind of focus on, because what I figure out when I talk with students and sometimes professionals is that they don't realize public relations is more than just media relations type work, what they see on TV or on film. There are many disciplines within public relations and marketing comms. So what area do you feel that you find yourself drawn to, or what do you specialize in today?
The discipline that I got into in public relations is education public relations. And let me tell you, that is an awesome place to be because you work on often a beautiful college campus, or it could be, I'm at a community college. So there's, high school public relations, there's elementary, but I happen to be at a college public relations office. And because I have a 13-year-old and I have a 19-year-old who's in college. Education PR is a little bit more flexible when it comes to raising a family because you're off typically for Christmas break. You may get off for spring break. Almost every holiday, federal holiday, you're off. So it's a really good work-life balance. And although some may consider education PR not as busy, It's not really like that, because you almost have to think of education PR as like for our mini PR agency, and we have hundreds of clients. And so one day we're doing, a media release, another day we're trying to pitch to media, we're handling social media crisis. Recently we had bad weather in San Antonio, so we were putting out communication messages about shutting down the college. So it's very busy on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes you walk into the office thinking, I'm just going to be on my computer all day, and I'm going to, get a press release in, or a media release, or, I'm going to work on social media messages. And it's, you take a hard left somewhere because you have to pivot really quickly. So education PR is a discipline that I went to, and one that I think is sometimes overlooked by young people coming in, because they don't really see all the different things that go into it.
No, absolutely. Because I think what I'm finding too is that they don't understand that there's, I would say, disciplines around the work, right? Like you mentioned several of them, and we're known for media relations, but of course, even like event planning and crisis communications and social media strategy can be focuses on their own. But then there's like subject matter specialties too. So you are intersecting several different specialties there, Melissa. Olga, what about you? I want to know more about the discipline that you feel like you specialize in. I know you're an independent counselor as well.
Overall, and, we have done everything for our clients uh, everywhere I have been. But the thing is that you learn so much with each client. And I believe that I do very well in crisis communications. One, because I like to anticipate all the different things that could happen. I'm like Linus with the little dark cloud of rain, and you have to anticipate what could happen. Maybe it won't, but you have to be ready, and you have to explain that to the clients. And living abroad, learning cultural values from so many different people in different states, different cultures, then you put all of that in the mix, and the solutions, or the potential solutions, are much better because it's more wholesome what you're presenting as a strategic crisis plan. And the best two jobs I had were my last two jobs at Banco Popular and Doral in San Juan. Not to mention that later I became an educator when I moved to Texas, at Texas State, where I taught for 10 years at the School of Journalism and Mass Communication. But being aware of your surroundings and having that knowledge of not only what happens here today, but in our nation, in our state, in the country, in the world, is very important to put it all together, because then you will become a better professional.
No, absolutely. I was just talking with a client about things of that nature too. I'm saying, I'm not here to throw a big dirty rat on the table, but I'm here to imagine how you might be prepared should one be thrown on the table. And we have a lot changing. We're recording this towards the end of January 2025, and a lot has changed in the country, and a lot may change. And guess what? Things are always changing. And for us to be able to see around those corners and imagine, well, if this, then that, then this is so helpful for our clients. And I think in some ways, I forgot that both of you teach and have taught. And I think that's really thrilling. You're together, because for students, that's a lot of how you should work with them, is helping them imagine what's coming next and how to prepare. Since you've both taught students at the college level, what is your insight? What would you say that they think about public relations and how you taught it? Or, is there any kind of nuances we should know about today's young people and their perspective around public relations or communications?
When I'm interacting with my students in my class, and I teach writing for digital media and also social media marketing, they often don't think of the discipline of public relations. They just kind of think about, okay, well, how do I promote my business? Or how do I do a social media ad or post that's going to bring more customers? And all that falls in kind of the the different hats that we wear in public relations. And I explained to them that a lot of the things that they're doing, they could be working in a public relations office doing that. So I think the younger generation already sees some of these things that I'm already doing it. Now you just have to help them put that puzzle together, that it's all communication. It's all digital communication. And it's one piece of whether it be marketing, public relations, or a communications office. So I think maybe helping them turn on that light bulb that it's communication in its essence really helps. And especially with a lot of young people wanting to be social media influencers, creating videos, TikTok videos, reels, that it's all coming together now. And those are still all different parts of communication. It's just digital. And you have to help them see that, they could use that into a career in public relations.
I love that. Or where they can use that. Yeah, Olga.
I agree with everything Melissa is sharing here because I had so many students that wanted to be influencers, and that was what they thought PR was. Or when we were doing a campaign, many of them want to do, okay, I'll do the campaign for the Kardashians, So I would bring them down to reality a little bit to show them what's around us. We live in San Marcos. What are the problems that we have in the area? And I started asking so that they would look for the information because they are living in a different world because of social media and everything that is digital. Of course, they know better than I do how to do those things, but you have to put into the mix what's going to happen when the government, we don't have electricity, we don't have water, we had a freeze, and how can they help? And then bring them to the localization where they live and the world where we live at. But definitely, they're learning fast. Definitely. Leaps and bounds.
Yeah, I think those are really great points by both of you. And I would just saw a little bit of that too perspective when the TikTok ban or pseudo ban, whatever that was, the TikTok blip, I'll say, happened. And we were expecting for them to be some change on maybe a Monday, but it went down on a Saturday night. And right. I have a daughter, she's young, and she was like more concerned because TikTok and the company owns TikTok owns CapCut, and she uses CapCut to edit videos. And so it was like, what am I going to do now? And I'm like, we're going to find another video editor, what? So, but I also saw a lot of these influencers we've talked about just really, in some cases, some were like having some meltdowns, ironically, on another social media channel, but because of the loss of TikTok and the loss of money. And so it really teaches us as communication leaders that we need to advise our upcoming pros about diversity of tools and channels and methodology and strategy so that we are resilient. All right. If one channel goes down, not a problem. I got a website. I got this channel. I can write an email. I have the new marketing list that way. So I think that those are all really important points. I wanted to add a little of our perspective over here when that happened too. So I think also in the book, what I really appreciate is this idea of it being a scalable way to advocate, like Melissa Monroe said, is, being called to speak here or there or talk to this student or that student. Like sometimes it's hard to scale ourselves, but the advice and information we shared in there can help do that for us. So ladies, what advice would you share with someone who may be considering either going after a promotion because they're in the business or maybe taking a scary step forward somewhere in PR?
They have to look at everything. I would recommend, of course, to look at everything, even though you're so excited at the offer and you feel like taking it right away. But you need to find more about that corporation. What's the culture inside? What do people write about that company and the employees? How are they treated? Are you going to be a good fit yourself in there? Will you be able to grow? So uh, sometimes I think that you have to put your passion on the side and coldly analyze everything that is around. I know it's difficult, but I think it's a good place to start.
Sounds like a crisis comm advisor right there, Melissa.
Yeah, so I'm going to balance that out a little bit. And I'm going to say that sometimes you just have to take the opportunities without being too picky, especially when you're younger in the business. I see a lot of students who don't want to take a certain position because they're looking for the next, better thing, or that being that social media influencer, as we mentioned. But no one's gonna give you more opportunities unless you go ahead and you have to start at the bottom somewhere, and you have to work yourself up, and that takes time. And it's okay to work at a minimum salary or hourly rate and still have another job on the side. And I remember when I was younger in the field of journalism, not only was I working, I was freelancing for the Business Journal, but I was also working at like a staff temping job, because you have to make money to pay your bills. So I had multiple jobs. And that's one of the things I still believe in today is, I have multiple streams of income coming in, because I do a lot of freelancing on the weekends. I do a lot of editing and writing for cultural magazines. So you have to be willing to put yourself out there and sometimes just take the leap of faith and do it. And then you have to learn along the way. How do you improve your writing? How do you improve your public speaking? How do you improve your social media tasks and get better so that you are employable and just as marketable in the next 5 or 10 years or next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, great points, because I heard two main points from you all. Olga is really finding that, taking that breath and thinking about it strategically and finding an environment or role that complements you, because you're right. The wrong environment can really, really hurt. And I think some of us have experienced that. And then, like you're saying, Melissa, being willing to hustle. Hustle came up as one of the words. Like if I was to make what do they call that? A word cloud. And like, what were the main words that came up in the collection? And one of them is hustle. So, but hustling in the right direction, I think is good to add to that conversation. Well, this has been a great convo, and I always love talking to guests like you all to really dig into these topics. But there's one question I like to ask all my guests, because I want our community to really think about how they conversate. So my question to you all is, what does smart talk mean to you?
When you presented that question, I asked it to myself, and I think overall, like just finishing this beautiful conversation, getting to know Melissa Monroe and getting to know you even more, Melissa Bella Williamson. I think the best way to define smart talk is to get something new out of conversations, to learn from each one of us, to be able to apply and share and being sincere, having a conversation that is really filled with a lot of wisdom, because we have lived and experienced different cases and experiences, personal ones, but we have been able to grow, and we can model after so many others. So thank you. Thank you for asking that.
So what smart talk means to me is being transparent, being realistic, and losing the toxic positivity. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times in our business, you'll have an executive who'll say, I want media coverage for this event. And then the PR person will come back and say, oh, of course, yes, I can get that for you. This is an excellent story. When you know good and well that this story is terrible, no one's going to come out and cover this. But you're going to be so positive all the time that you give the executive what they want to hear. And to me, that's not smart. That's not being transparent. That's not being realistic. And that's too much toxic positivity. So I'm the type of person that I will respect you more if you are transparent, you're realistic, and you give it to me straight. Just give it to me straight.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's where that phrase came up for me, smart talk, because was saying I talk in a way that's straight or give you real talk. But sometimes when people use real talk, we're not even talking about positive or passive toxicity. They're just toxic. So I wanted people to be thoughtful about what they said and how they said it. So I appreciate that, ladies, very much. Well, this has been so delightful and insightful. And this is like the tip of the iceberg of what you all can share in terms of stories and lessons and advice for others, personally and professionally. So, what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
For listeners to connect with me, I would suggest LinkedIn, and you can find me at Melissa Monroe, SATX, on LinkedIn. And that's the best way to learn about who I am, some of the places where I worked, and how you can contact me. So thank you so much, Melissa, for being on this podcast. And I love talking with everyone today.
You can connect with me through LinkedIn, Olga Mayoral Wilson, and also at Olga Words through Twitter, which is now the new one, of course. And it's been a pleasure. Great opportunity today.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Melissa and Olga, for sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thank you for having me on the podcast, and good luck to everyone out there who is new in public relations, and have some confidence and have some smart talk, and make sure to pick up our book.
Thanks to our listeners for joining me for today's episode. We love covering communication topics that elevate our industry practice. If you'd like to go deeper, you can work with me as a coach, trainer, consultant, or hire my firm, MVW Communications, for strategic communication and public relations services. My industry books, Smart Talk, Public Relations Essentials All Pros Should Know, and Latinas in Public Relations, Shaping Communications, Communities, and Culture, are also available for purchase on Amazon. Grab your copy there, and please leave us a supportive review. Book reviews and podcast reviews help more aspiring or hardworking pros find our resources. As always, think smart and communicate smart. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Smart Talk series. If you learned something or enjoyed our conversation, share it on social media or send to a friend. To learn more about this and other communication topics, visit mvw360.com. That's mvw360.com.